Trapped inside a robot, a young boy seeks help to find his missing body. What starts as an adventure devolves into a nightmare as his sister learns about the vile acts they make him do. In 1990, a time when humans and robots coexist, Michelle congratulates her younger brother for acing a test that took Albert Einstein 3 days to finish within minutes. After some convincing, Christopher finally agrees to attend university ahead of his sister. They seal the arrangement by recreating a scene from their favorite cartoon, bumping their fists, and forming a C with their hands, just like the beloved characters of the Kid Cosmo show. A documentary reveals that Walt Disney first developed robots in 1955 for his theme park. Later, they were mass-produced globally to perform human jobs, working tirelessly 24/7 for many years without complaining. However, they grew tired of their assigned duties and rebelled against people, demanding to have lives of their own. The United States launched a war against the Robot Equality Coalition, as their protests turned violent, but failed to suppress them for 2 consecutive years. That is until Centre founder Ethan Skate invented the Neurocaster, which gave human soldiers the ability to mind-control powerful drones and defeat the rebels. Over 6,000 insurgents surrendered to the government and agreed to be imprisoned in the tech company's exclusion zone, also known as the X, where they were allowed to live freely. The Neurocaster was eventually released to the public, enabling users to be in 2 places at the same time. By connecting to a drone, people could immerse half of their brains in leisure, while the other half handled daily responsibilities. In 1994, years after the war, Michelle refuses to wear Centre's device in class, as she'd rather live in the present. Ms. Sablinsky calls her to the office to understand her deviance, and learns that she lost her whole family to a fatal car accident. The school principal suggests neurotherapy to help her deal with the loss, but the student is distracted by the memory of Christopher as she's trying to calm him down by the beach. As soon as she snaps back to reality, she excuses herself and immediately heads home. That evening, she dreams about the time her dad hit a deer and awakens in the middle of her nightmare, unable to accept the fact that she's lost her dear brother. Just then, Michelle hears a strange noise and notices a shadow lurking nearby, so she goes out to investigate. She's startled to see a robot hiding behind the table and rushes back inside, fearing for her life. As the bot topples over his hiding spot and chases her, she desperately tries to wake her foster father, hoping he'll keep them safe. Unfortunately, he's hooked to his caster and remains unaware of his surroundings. She then runs toward her room and hides under her bed, but Kid Cosmo eventually finds her. Terrified, Michelle stands up and orders him to stay back, demanding to know what he wants since he isn't supposed to be outside the exclusion zone. However, the boy simply points at her, and she realizes that he's harmless. When she notices that his communicator is broken, she repairs his wires to help him express himself. As soon as he's fixed, Cosmo starts spewing lines from his show as his way of talking. The robot picks up Michelle's picture to show that he recognizes her. Next, he points at Christopher and then himself as he jumps excitedly, implying he's her brother. Then, he reveals there's trouble and suggests teaming up to defeat the monster. However, she tearfully refuses to believe a word Cosmo says, forcefully grabbing the photo and pushing him against a bookshelf that falls over him. Ted, the teen's guardian, comes up to her room to investigate the noise. When he discovers a bot, he reprimands her, afraid they'll be in trouble with the state. She tries to explain the situation, but her foster dad shoves her to their uninvited guest and tells her to take him outside. Michelle is stunned when Cosmo catches her fall and curls his hand into a C, which reminds her of her brother. After reassuring her with a nod, he bravely confronts the man for hurting his sister and pushes him. Ted retaliates by hitting him with a golf club when the robot suddenly grabs it and hurls him, accidentally injuring his head. As he reports the incident to the authorities, Michelle tases him, rendering him unconscious. She then escapes with Cosmo and drives to a former battleground using her foster dad's car. There, Christopher confirms he isn't actually the robot and that he's alive somewhere else. When asked if he knows his whereabouts, the boy points at Centre's sign and tells her to find the doctor wearing glasses. She recalls that on the day of the accident, a man who fits the description told her that her whole family passed away. Michelle takes out the map to uncover his exact location, and Cosmo directs her to Tabletop Mountain. She goes through Ted's trunk and figures that to get to the exclusion zone, they just have to find the person who's shipping him the packages. The duo then travels to New Mexico, where they come across John Keats, the man who sells contraband from the X, and Herman, his trusted sidekick robot. Shortly after retrieving cash from his mail, they sneak into the back of his truck. When they arrive at a warehouse near the exclusion zone, they hide inside a crate, which Herman later unloads. While John argues with his assistant for unplugging the refrigerator, the teen and her bother quietly leave the box and accidentally trigger a motion-sensing toy. The noise prompts the two to investigate, and they soon discover Michelle and Cosmo. The latter reveals they're headed for the X, but the man worries about their safety and warns them it's not a safe place. Suddenly, an uninvited guest arrives through the elevator, so John hands his sidekick a gun. As the bots hide, he asks the teenager to pretend she's his sister and vows to protect them. However, Colonel Bradbury, leader of the robot deactivation force, doesn't buy their story and issues a warrant for Michelle's arrest. Herman shoots at him from behind, but the drone uses his friend to block the attack and targets the bot next. Fortunately, the teenager thinks quickly on her feet, successfully disarming him and switching the lights off. When John fails to stop the marshal with a pistol, she distracts him just in time, allowing his sidekick to restrain him with a crane. They escape through the railway, but just when the group thinks they've evaded arrest, Bradbury catches up to them and shoots, causing their train to topple and throwing them out. While the two robots fend him off, Michelle drives a tractor straight at him, crushing the drone. Unfortunately, the earth around the warehouse collapses and blocks its only exit. John panics as they're now trapped in the desert, but when they hear chilling screeches not far away, he quickly regains his composure and prompts them to hide. As they witness one robot attack another, the man explains that the area is filled with similar bots that scavenge their kind for parts, even if they're alive. John then takes them to a hangar, where Michelle explains that her brother is operating Kid Cosmo, and that they're looking for a certain physician who's aware of his whereabouts. Inside the safe house, his sidekick gets on board a larger version of himself and prepares to leave with his human friend. When the teen suggests they all head to the X to find the doctor, as he might know a way out of the desert, they agree to her plan. Soon, the giant bot carries the group in a Volkswagen van and walks across the treacherous land. Michelle learns that John served in the military and that Herman took pity when he found him with broken legs, sobbing and begging for his life. Sentry's drones eventually got to them and mercilessly opened fire despite the ex-soldier's pleas that the bot saved his life. And so they ran away and have been friends since then. Meanwhile, Ethan sits by a table, eager to eat the cannoli his mother is serving, when suddenly, the simulation of his ideal world glitches. Frustrated, he removes his neurocaster and finds himself back in his office. Later, he confronts his scientists about the system errors and discovers that Christopher's consciousness has escaped. If they don't get him back, both the neurocaster program and Sentry's stock market will collapse in a matter of days. Desperate to save his company, Ethan meets with Colonel Bradbury and asks him to retrieve Cosmo alive. The marshal agrees in exchange for a handsome reward, as long as he's allowed to terminate the robot after the man gets what he wants. In the meantime, the group comes across a seemingly abandoned mall when they get attacked. Herman tries to escape from the large objects being hurled in their direction, but one of them damages his leg and causes him to lose his balance. Their van rolls over, and while no one is seriously injured, Perplexo approaches and briefly announces their capture. The magician dramatically leads the captives into the mall as if he's hosting a show. Inside, he introduces them to Mr. Peanut, leader of the now-defunct Robot Equality Coalition. He apologizes for the hostility and tours them around Blue Sky Acres. Michelle asks the former planter's promotional bot if he knows a doctor, but he initially denies it. After learning that Sentry is holding her brother captive, he decides to be honest with her and reveals they encountered a physician named Clark Amherst. Not wanting to violate the peace treaty and risk being wiped out of existence, they sent him out into the desert. When Mr. Peanut refuses to help the teenager because he thinks all humans are undeserving, she admonishes him for treating them no differently from how people treat their kind. She storms off with Kid Cosmo, determined to find the man alone. Thankfully, John and Herman convince them to stay until the morning since it's dangerous to go out in the dark. Once Michelle is alone, she recalls the time when Christopher went home for Christmas during college. He wanted to move back in with his family, tired of his professor always showing him off and his roommate's constant bullying. However, his sister encouraged him not to give up until he made the world better, and he silently agreed with a sigh. The siblings then expressed how much they missed each other and bonded over Kid Cosmo as it played on the TV. In the present, Michelle is sobbing uncontrollably, overcome by grief. Just then, her brother reaches out to comfort her and projects their favorite cartoon on the wall. They watch it together, just like before. intriguing other robots who join them to enjoy the show. Later that evening, Penny Pal, a postwoman robot, hands Christopher a postcard that Dr. Amherst left her while he was still with them. In it, he instructs the boy to find him at the indicated address. Mr. Peanut overhears their conversation and offers to help them get there. So he introduces them to Popfly, a baseball bot who's experienced in dealing with scavengers. The next day, they head out in a van and reach their destination by nighttime. They find themselves in an abandoned circus, only to realize they're surrounded by vicious bots. They dash toward the House of Horrors, but unfortunately, its fake doors won't open, leaving them hopelessly stranded and outnumbered. Right in time, blinding lights flash throughout the circus, and funky music blares out from the speakers, causing the scavenger bots to go berserk. The floors underneath the group suddenly open, and they fall into a laboratory. There, Michelle meets Dr. Clark Amherst in the flesh and demands to know what he did to her brother. With the help of his personal bot, PC, he shows that the car accident left his brother in a comatose. Thinking his condition would be permanent, he allowed Sentry to use the boy's extraordinary brain to connect humans to drones so they could win the war against rebels. 13 months later, Christopher unexpectedly awakened from his deep sleep. The doctor advised Ethan to disconnect him from the network, but the mogul threatened him instead. Fearing for his own life, he decided to leave the tech company. But before he did, he tinkered with the system so the boy's mind could escape his body. He also implanted the location of Blue Sky Acres into his consciousness, hoping that he would find solace among other robots. After hearing this, Michelle demands accountability from Dr. Amherst, and that she should help them retrieve his brother despite his protests that it'll be impossible to get past their security. Just then, they see Bradbury looking at the surveillance camera on the front porch. The colonel shoots the floor and slides into the laboratory, but no one is there. Within moments, the lights go off, and Mr. Peanut attacks him from behind. While the colonel is distracted, John, Herman, Popfly, and Penny Pal slip past him to defend the front entrance. Determined to fight the newly arrived drones, the baseball bot manages to take down a few before the others pitch in. Meanwhile, Michelle and Cosmo slip through the back of the circus with the help of Dr. Amherst and PC. Unfortunately, Bradbury successfully overpowers Mr. Peanut and forcefully removes his top hat, dangerously exposing his wires. He informs the rebel leader to warn others about the consequences of breaking the peace treaty, and then catches up to their target by the carousel, where he orders them to surrender the yellow-headed robot. Cornered, the doctor instructs the siblings to escape while he bravely faces the marshal, knowing that he isn't allowed to kill humans. However, Ethan's drone unexpectedly shoots the man, which quickly ends his life but upsets Bradbury as it's against their protocol. As Michelle and her brother make a run for it, a flying drone snatches up Cosmo and disappears into the air. Another one restrains the teenager, though she's shocked when the colonel shoots him down to protect her and advises her to go home. By morning, the group discovers a horrifying scene. Blue Sky Acres has fallen to an overnight attack, leaving the mall in ruins and many lifeless robots, including Perplexo, whom Mr. Peanut apologizes to. The few who survived emerge from the shadows, damaged and heartbroken. At Sentry's Island campus in Seattle, Bradbury accompanies a cuffed Cosmo into the central lab where Christopher lies unconscious. While the robot is hooked to a machine that would force his consciousness back to his body, the colonel confronts Ethan for having him hunt a boy. The CEO explains that his neurocaster technology enables people to live blissfully, but implies that they'll need to sacrifice the genius child to achieve that. The marshal, disturbed by the man's lack of empathy for Christopher, doesn't share his utopian ideals and believes that suffering is a normal aspect of life. As the robots grieve their fallen companions, Michelle enlists PC's assistance in retrieving her brother since he knows Sentry's security codes and the building where he is. He warns that disconnecting Christopher from the mainframe will cause the company and its drones to collapse since the entire system runs through his brain. Instead, she sees it as an opportunity to defeat Sentry and permanently shut them down. Mr. Peanut hesitates to fight with her, afraid they'll lose again. However, Michelle reassures him that they can win without Christopher on the company's side. When she reveals that her ultimate goal is for humans and robots to live peacefully together, the rebel leader and his surviving companions agree to help save her brother. Thanks to PC, they manage to drive several trucks to Seattle without being detected. Herman then uses his largest model yet, the Herm 60, so they can reach the island by water. the massive construction bot starts throwing vehicles at one of Sentry's buildings to distract them. Soon, a battle takes place between the robots and drones, giving PC the opportunity to sneak Michelle into the laboratory where they're holding the boy. Meanwhile, Bradbury confronts Mr. Peanut and finally understands that, much like people, they're simply fighting for their right to live freely. He puts down his weapon and shares Ethan's whereabouts, attributing his change of heart to the realization that some men, like Sentry's CEO, are less human than robots. Just as the Colonel removes his neurocaster, Michelle wears one for the first time so she can talk to Christopher. Soon, the teen finds herself wandering in their family home on the night that her brother went home for Christmas. Although she's in disbelief, she musters enough courage to approach him even though she's tearing up. As soon as she comes near her brother, she firmly holds his hands and relishes the moment, then quickly asks him to leave with her. He says there's no way out because removing him from the system will also lead to his demise. But seeing how Sentry used him to commit atrocities, he doesn't mind paying the price. Simultaneously, Ethan orders one of his drones to take out John. As soon as he removes his caster, Mr. Peanut confronts him and demands they renegotiate the peace treaty's terms. On the battlefield, Herman takes several shots as he saves the ex-soldier from a fatal attack. His friend desperately tries to patch him up, thinking he'll overcome it like he always does. But when the lights on his face go out and his metal body limps, John can only stare in shock. At the lab, PC urges Michelle to hurry because their friends are losing to the drones. However, she refuses to unplug Christopher from the mainframe, knowing it will end his life. Now in tears, the boy reminds his sister they'll always have each other, but that if she doesn't disconnect him soon, she can lose everyone else. He adds that perhaps it was always her destiny to change the world, and not his. Having decided, the siblings embrace one last time before Michelle removes her neurocaster. Back in the lab, she turns off her younger brother's life support. She tearfully grasps Cosmo's hand with one hand, while holding on to Christopher's chest in the other, hoping that he'll live forever in their beloved robot. In the boy's mind, he goes to sleep peacefully, fully aware that he'll never wake again. When he passes away, the drone that's about to shoot John deactivates, saving him in the nick of time. The man briefly rejoices in their victory against their center, but soon finds himself grieving over the friend he lost. Just when he's confessing that he loves him, a tiny Herman emerges, revealing he's still alive. At his office, Ethan witnesses his creations fall from a live feed and wonders if Mr. Peanut will take his life. Instead, the rebel leader says he wants all of them to live. News from all over the world report that Sentry's drones have gone offline, leaving cities in chaos. It is later revealed that the tech giant experimented on a human child, leading to Ethan's eventual arrest and the abolishment of the exclusion zone. Eager to make the world a better place, Michelle records a video to share that while the company's neurocasters helped them deal with the war and their personal struggles, the technology was unhealthy since it made them forget how to live. She reminds viewers that life is about connecting with other living beings because we need each other. Michelle then ends her heartfelt speech by urging those who don't have anyone to join them in building a bright future. Elsewhere, at a junkyard, a seemingly lifeless Cosmo is thrown into the dump. However, as a stray dog drinks water from a nearby puddle, its reflection shows the robot standing up to walk away. The boy is alive after all.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.